This is the story of a locked room, a whispered debt, and the smell of fresh earth where no earth should be disturbed. The restless guest of the Catherine Wheel. It was close on midnight when the traveller came to Bibury. The hedges dripped with rain, the lanes shone like ink, and the village lay quiet as a graveyard. Then, ahead, an amber glow, a sign creaked in the damp breeze, a spoked wheel wreathed in painted flames. The Catherine Wheel. Inside, the taproom was low-beamed and smoky, alive with the scent of hops and hearthwood. Pewter glinted on the shelves. The fire pushed back the dark. A few locals looked up, then back to their ale. The landlady, brisk and sharp-eyed, sized him with a glance. "Bed? If you've one free. Front top's yours," she said, passing a heavy key. "Sheets aired, fire laid. Mind the beams, they've blooded better heads." He ate stew thick with thyme and barley until his fingers thawed. Yet the longer he lingered, the stranger the fire seemed. Every so often, between crackles, the draught tugged inward, not smoke going up, but something drinking the warmth. He laughed at himself and climbed to bed. The stairs were narrow, polished by the years. His room was small but neat, a bed with a patchwork quilt, a chest, a chair, and a little hearth where coals glowed steadily. He wedged the chair against the door, out of habit, and stood by the warped window to watch the dark lane and the pale meadow beyond the river. That was when he smelt it. Not smoke, not damp wool, earth, roared newly turned, as on a graveside. It came in waves, sharp enough to raise the hair on his arms. He checked the hearth, the boards, under the bed. Nothing. Yet the smell clung. He lay down uneasy. Twice in the night he woke certain someone stood at the foot of the bed. The third time he woke to sound the slow weight of boots shifting on boards. Not above, not below. Here. "Who's there?" he whispered. The only reply was the fire settling to ash and the smell stronger now. On the hearth, dim in the glow, a smudge lay in the soot. The press of a knee. He did not move again until grey light came through the glass. At breakfast, the landlady watched him over the spout of the coffee pot. "You've had the smell," she said simply. "Earth," he managed. She called her husband, a broad man with dark crescents under his nails. He eyed the guest and nodded once. "And a mark by the hearth?" "Yes." "That's how it comes," he told the tale. Years ago in winter, when a widow kept the house sharp of tongue, fair in trade, a stranger came late, soaked and grey with exhaustion. He begged a bed. The rooms were full. He asked for a place by the kitchen fire. She refused. By morning he lay curled on the back step, the frost on his coat. No wound, no complaint, simply still. The widow, stricken, saw him buried decently by the church. But from that winter on, guests in the front top woke to the smell of earth, and sometimes to more. Footsteps in the quiet, ash disturbed as though someone knelt to warm himself without heat. The widow never denied it. She began leaving a candle on the hearth each night and let it burn down, a penny's worth of light, she called it, to pay a debt that had no purse. After she died, the habit ended. The room did not forget. The traveller might have left it there, but curiosity held him back. "Do you still keep the candles?" "In the chest under the bed," the landlord said. "Old stock. Some say they help." That evening, the house felt as if it had drawn a breath and held it. He found the fat, chalky candles, bound with twine, set one on the hearthstone, and touched it to the tinder. It took light, as though it remembered how. For a time, he watched the room soften. Shadows slipped up the beams. The quilt rose and fell with his own slow breathing. The smell ebbed and returned. Near midnight, his head nodded, and he woke to cold on his cheek. The candle had burned low. Air moved by his face as if someone had leaned close. He turned. By the fire stood a figure, not flesh, not smoke, but the outline of a man the world had almost forgotten. The suggestion of shoulders, the tilt of a head, the draft pulled toward it. The earth's smell filled his throat. Without thinking, he lifted the candle. The flame flared, bent, guttered, as though seized and let go. A sigh seemed to pass through the boards. The figure was gone. On the hearth, a small impression marked the ash, round as a coin pressed once and lifted. He slept little after that. At dawn, he asked for his reckoning. The landlady wrote the sum neatly on a slip whose corner bore a faint brown ring, as if once a candle had rested there. He'd paid more than was asked. The landlord slid something back across the bar, a faded key label, the ink pale but legible. Front top set alight. "Keep it," the man said. It was hers. He stepped into the mild morning. The river ran like glass. Arlington Row held its breath in stone. When he glanced up at the gable window, he saw only sky, yet his hand smelt faintly of wax and of damp, unsettled earth, all the way to the lane's end. The Catherine wheel still stands in Bibury. The front top is not always let, but if you should stay and wake to the smell of earth, set a light and let it burn down. Some debts are small, a candle's worth, and very old. Before he left the breakfast table, the landlady added, almost as an afterthought, "We used to keep a saucer too." "A saucer? For the tallow," she said. She'd set the candle in a white saucer and leave a thimble of water beside it, in case the wick raced. "There's a crack in the saucer like a hair. You'll find it in the chest if you're minded." He found it that evening. Crazed glaze, a spider of a fracture that ended in a neat chip. He set the candle in it and watched the flame make a little theatre of the saucer's rim. The crack filled with shadow so that it looked for all the world like a tiny lane running off into darkness. When the smell came again, he spoke low, as to a nervous horse. "There's heat enough to go round, friend." He could not have said why he chose the word. The coals settled with a sound like someone shifting a chair back from the table, and when the light guttered at last, he noticed a pale crescent of tallow that had run to the rim and cooled. In it was the shallow print of something like a fingertip. He did not touch it. He let it harden and left it there. As proof or invitation, he couldn't say which.